Observe instead of absorbing the negative opinions about yourself. A lot of the time, we have thoughts about ourselves that are destructive, that aren't aligned to our vision of who we would like to see ourselves as being. Oftentimes, also, we might have opinions and thoughts about ourselves that basically attempt to bring us back to who we were or back to the past. And so a lot of the opinions that we have, they're not rooted in the truth about us, which is literally that we are children of God. Look at who's here. She just kept jumping behind me. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Do you want to give some puppy love? Do you want to give some puppy love? Oh, she's in the teething stage or season, where everything's fun to bite in and at, right? Yeah. So we have a choice though, because the thoughts that generate and that come into our consciousness, sort of, they I would say are sometimes coming out of nowhere, right? They're like clouds. And I think this idea that you can control your what your thoughts are, etc., etc., it can be true to some extent, but to another extent, there are going to be subconscious opinions and thoughts that will come up from afar, right? Like from a very deep place. Because you have your conscious thoughts that you can impress upon your subconscious mind, sort of beliefs and opinions that are way, way, way down in your consciousness. And look at that. It's like, what's this? You get wrapped in. So the thoughts, they can come from a very deep place, and they might even come from a collective consciousness place. They can come from your own subconscious sort of kind of library, I would say, which means those thoughts, they come from previous experience, they can come from what you've seen growing up, they can come from your own upbringing. So the thoughts, that they will come, they will be there. They will either come from your from the collect unconscious, or they will come from the subconscious of your own, or they will come from your own consciousness of impressing them onto yourself. But very often your own conscious thoughts, they're not that destructive, because of course you wouldn't consciously sort of look down upon yourself and say negative things to yourself, unless you're in a hamster wheel and in a negative feedback loop of negative opinions. Suddenly even your conscious thoughts become negative, and you really begin absorbing those thoughts, those negative opinions about yourself. And that's what I'm getting at here. You want to be able to observe instead of absorbing the negative opinions about yourself. What's the difference between absorbing and observing? Well, to observe means that you are not sort of the subject to your own thoughts. You are the observer. You have your own thoughts, and there's a gap in between those thoughts. And if you're able to get in between the gap in between the thoughts, you can observe the thought more as a third person, rather than just someone that the thought happens to jump at, if that makes sense. And what are you biting at now? Biting at the desk. Um, so the observing takes more training to begin with, because very often we're not actually trained to do this. We're not taught by people around us very often that you can observe the thoughts that are going through your mind and realign them to the truth of God, the truth of the principles that are ancient and really that are really the truth about us, um, which truly is that we are made in the image of God, which means that we have the capacity to love ourselves. We have the capacity to love others. We is that good? Oh. Um, so being able to observe allows you choice. If you are not able to observe, the choice slips away from your consciousness. Versus when you absorb the negative opinions instead of observing them, they sink deeper into your consciousness. They sink deeper into your being, and thus they sink deeper into your mind, and then that influences your emotions and feelings, and that again influences your behavior and the way that you act, the way that you speak, and all of that. And so the absorbing, it is very often something that it really is like a what's it called, a you know what I mean. um I'll get back to it. But basically, it's like the soil. Let's use that metaphor instead. Whatever you sow into the soil and you nourish, you will see take root, rise, and bloom. And it can be the seed of a weed, or it can be the seed of a beautiful sunflower. That's really how I think about everything. And very often, I think that you would want to look at the patterns in your life. And very often, you then can look at the behaviors that you tend to repeat, the results that you tend to see in your relationships, in your intimate relationships, your friendships. It might be that you can look at the results that are in your business, career, student life, you know, and look at that because those things are seemingly real. You can actually see them and you can observe them. And now you have an observation of what the pattern is in the physical. Now you can trace that back to the thoughts that might have been the root cause of those results. And so now you can begin to then observe the reality and the physicality and the realizations and actualizations of your thoughts and trace it back to the root. Babe, no. Trying to rip it off. Are you trying to rip it off? Oh, she's got this little like beard. She's got a beard. Wow. Look at that. Milk. It looks like milk. Yeah? Milk and honey. Maybe that's what we should call you. Milk and honey. Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna start calling you that. Grace, Gracie, and Milk and Honey. What do you think? I hope that this was helpful. I truly believe that everything that's been generated in my life has been the result of my observations of the negative opinions about myself and the observing of the negative opinions about yourself. It's just that it's the ratio that's important. Of course, we're going to fall short. Of course, we're going to sometimes absorb the negative opinions about ourselves, but we still would want to strive absorb observe them, observe the negative opinions about ourselves as well, so that the ratio between them becomes a little bigger, so that we basically observe more than absorb. And that is what matters. Perfectionism does not help. To be nagging at ourselves for not being able to always observe ourselves. But I think it's a great challenge, and I think that that is what God calls us to do as well. If we want to grow in the image of Christ, and that means the characteristics that He embodied here on earth. I think we want to be able to strive to also observe ourselves and our behaviors and the way that we treat others, the way that we think about ourselves. And ultimately, the way that we treat others is going to be a reflection about how we treat ourselves, what we think about ourselves. So we should always start with the observation of our own negative opinions. Yes, and that is what I help you with within the garden community. You can go to bloombeyond.com/waitlist to join. This is a community that emphasizes both a psychological and theological approach to living life and to being able to create a life that is fulfilling in accordance to the principles of God and being able to live our most fullest expression of ourselves so that we can glorify the fact that we live, that we get to live. How beautiful is that? Truly, it's so beautiful. And that begins with us absorb. I'm, ma- I'm mixing observing and absorbing. Jeez, help me, Jesus, to realign my language here. It's really important to be able to observe the thoughts about ourselves and the negative opinions about ourselves and realign them to truth. That's what I help you with and support you with. And it helps to be surrounded by other people who do the very same. Yes, so that's it for now. About to head to town. Yes, because what, Grace? What are we going to do today? What are we going to do? I'm going to the dentist to remove a wisdom teeth, actually, on the right upper side. And that was a recommendation from my dentist. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And actually, I'm going to basically listen to very soothing music in the background. That is going to be encouraging and encouraging my thoughts. And also, I'm going to take myself into a state of hypnosis as well before and during this because our mind is really powerful and your mind is going to really matter. Where your mindset is at is going to matter when you approach certain experiences, such as me going to the dentist right now. Like, it's going to be important to observe our thoughts so that the thoughts don't create a negative feedback loop and then suddenly we find ourselves distracting or pulling away or avoiding something that we really, like, our higher self need to be in. Like, the higher self need to experience. And I do need to go to the dentist, right? So um, that's what we're gonna do. All right, have a good one. Thank you so much. Bright light and love. Bye-bye. Bye.